Okay, and we are back on stage here. The keynote has just ended. Dan and I just did our wrap, and we have a special guest here. You can't imagine who this might be, but it was a really good keynote, Daniel, and what I liked especially is making enterprise AI real, removing the barriers like cost and data management, and the complexity away from these companies.
Yeah, talking to large companies, different industries. You and I have been challenging the industry to bring some practicality. Of course, we see these massive AI factories and data centers being built out, but where's the value being extracted for retail customers, for financial services customers? And Pat, we got a good dose of that this morning.
We did. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you guys for being here.
No, I appreciate it. You get off the stage, have enough time to, I don't know, recharge the microphone or something, get a glass of water, but thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's good to have you here, Michael. I mean, what a great keynote. Way to start the day, hearing from JP Morgan, hearing from Lowe's, and of course, Jensen coming in remote from Computex, but it was great that you were able to get that because the progress that you've made with NVIDIA and Dell's partnership has been so impressive over the year. But you came up on stage and you had these kind of the city, you had the cross streets, you're talking about inventing the future. That's a big job to take on in this particular moment, Michael. How are you thinking about inventing the future, and what is Dell's role as you see in making this happen?
You know, I think one of the big points is that there's a big re-architecture going on with AI. And one difference between last year's Dell Tech World and this year is now we have 3,000 plus of these customers deploying Dell AI factories. Some are really big, some are medium-sized, some are small. And you saw some great examples on stage. We'll have more throughout the show and more partners, and this is not easy stuff, right?
Sure.
It takes
highly complex.
It takes a lot of work in terms of organizing the data, dealing with privacy, dealing with security, finding the right models, the right size. But there is this enormous build out that's going on. We're definitely seeing it with our customers of all sizes. And obviously we have directed the company toward this opportunity in a massive way across the board, right? From the technology side to services, to partnerships, go to market, our DFS, asset management, everything to enable this big build out.
So Dell is unique in that it spans all the way from the client computing, enterprise edge, to the CSP, to the enterprise data center. You made hundreds of announcements over the past 2 years on modernizing data centers, but you've been doing this for 30 years. Can you talk a little bit about your approach, maybe the new way you're looking at doing this, maybe even pepper in some of your favorite announcements?
Yeah, so we at this show, we're talking about more than 200 announcements and enhancements to the Dell AI factory that have occurred over the last year and are happening right now. And I think it's important to step back a little bit and say, as we go from basic LLMs to test-time compute, reasoning, agents, each increment you get on the order of a 10 to 100x increase in tokens.
Right.
So when I was talking about that system that we're deploying right now, that can support tens of trillions of tokens, this is major, right? That system is like more capacity than all existed, right? Not that long ago. So right. I mean, the exponential growth of these things is enormous. So re-architecting the compute, the storage, the networking, and then having the bite-sized pieces of it that work at the level of a retail store or inside a telco cellular base station, or inside a small restaurant or a gas station, in your PC, all the way up to these massive training models. So, you'll see on the show floor, our engineering teams have been cranking up the innovation. Tomorrow, Jeff and Arthur and Sam will go even in more detail about the progress we're making to support all this. And I really think we're still in the first 10% of this S-curve adoption.
That's right.
Because you do see some companies that are going ahead, but from being out there, and I know that a lot of customers, they're not exactly sure what to do with all this, how to do it, where to start. So we're helping them. And you'll see a lot of more bite-sized solutions and appliances and a partnership with Cohere around North to make it an easy appliance where a mid-sized company can begin to utilize these tools.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I listened to the Computex keynote last night, Michael, and I think Jensen was talking about building the spine of basically with NVLink and how they can basically build a spine now that they can handle more traffic than the entire internet handles right now with 7 racks. I mean, it's such a small proportion of infrastructure to get so much out, and much of this is being done with Dell, which is great. A lot of the focus here has been about AI changing industries. You heard in my preamble, I talked about retail, I talked about financial services. You brought these people up on stage. These companies want to accelerate outcomes. They want to get to the point where this investment, the cities of infrastructure they're building, become outputs of greater productivity. How are you sort of enabling, how are you seeing that happen? I heard in your last answer that you're I hear a lot of excitement, but a little bit of, there's still this kind of hesitancy. How do we make that happen faster? How does Dell help make that happen faster?
Well, this is where we need to get vertical and get into the partnerships and build these solutions. And we've built hundreds of them now that are either reference platforms or starter kits or ways for customers to begin to utilize this around specific use cases, whether it's a coding assistant or a agent, chat bot, or improving their documentation flows, or somebody in a manufacturing floor says, oh, how do I interpret this problem? And I've got thousands of manuals and documents. Now I can put this into the model, and it's going to tell me exactly what the problem is, and I don't have to go search through all these documents and manuals. So really building practical solutions, and you see a lot of partners here also, at our expo that are joined up with us because we can't do this by ourselves, but it is advancing at an incredible rate. And yeah, this is maybe the most exciting time ever in our industry that I've experienced. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I always like to say it's not your imagination. Things are moving quicker, and it is big this time. I mean, there have been fits and starts. 7 or 8 years ago, chatbots were going to change the world, okay? Industry 4.0 was going to transform the edge overnight. As I look back, there were some missing pieces of that, and I do try to connect the pieces between what was missing and what's available now. We have 1,000 times more AI performance per watt at the edge than we did 8 years ago, okay? We have systems to manage workflows better at the edge. So, I fully believe this is like the internet, the second generation of the internet. It's just that big. The things that the internet didn't change, though, there were pockets that there really weren't changes, particularly on the edge. We took a paper model and we digitized it,
right,
as opposed to changing the way that things get done. So yeah, I believe that this is the real thing. I think you've been doing this close to 40 years. I'm on year 35 coming up here, but this is the real deal.
Yeah, I think that reimagining of what you're doing is sort of the hardest thing to do because you have to sort of take yourself out of what you're doing right now.
Yes.
And so, that's what we're doing inside Dell Technologies. It's what many of our customers are working on doing, but again, we're a long way from the whole world being reimagined, and that's going to take years to occur. There are barriers and that sort of thing, but the benefits are unmistakable.
Sure.
And I think, existing companies sort of have this window of opportunity to jump ahead, and we certainly don't want to miss it. We don't want our customers to miss it. It's happening.
Yeah, the diffusion of technology, though, is incredibly fast.
Yeah, this is all happening way faster than the internet rolled out.
Sure.
The ability for us to actually digest it is it's sort of rate limited by us as humans, because if you actually see how fast these technologies are progressing, it's not so much the tech, it's really us trying to figure out how to digest, ingest, and proliferate this into the world. But we've seen with every transformation, you mentioned Industry 4, you mentioned the internet just now, we do see these cycles get shorter. And what I am very confident is it isn't like an internet moment where it's like we're gonna build the infrastructure, it's gonna be years. I think it's gonna be months, every few months we're gonna see meaningful, noticeable progress, and not just for technologists and scientists. I think it's meaningful progress that people like, well, we're technologists, but people that are out in the world every day, shopping at Lowe's, banking at JP Morgan, can experience in the applications and in the tools and in their in real life experiences.
Yeah, and one of the things we do at Dell Tech World is we have these 200 plus breakout sessions that are highly technical. And so we'll get into all those details, okay? You got regulation, you got security concerns, you got data privacy concerns, you got who's supposed to use what data and how, inside your organization, how do you do that and apply AI? And we're here to help.
So Michael, if I look at your rate of product announcements, if I look at the partnerships that you have, it's close to exponential at the increase clock rate that Dell is operating right now. And it seems like this is what needs to be done to not only deliver the AI to other people outside of it, but also transform Dell itself inside. What words of wisdom would you give a company who might not be as far along the path as Dell is to minimize time for their transformations? Is it a state of mind? Is it a type of people you hire? Is it a culture thing?
Well, Daniel was pointing to earlier sort of the cultural aspects here, and I do think that there's a big element there because this is ultimately a change management activity, right? And you hear various phrases like "never let a crisis go to waste." One of my favorite is if there's not a crisis, make one. Right? Let's figure out how to turn this into a crisis where if we don't do it, something bad is going to happen, right? And so, how do you lead people through such incredible change? First of all, I think you have to explain what is going on. Why is this important? What does it actually mean? What happens if we do it? What happens if we don't do it? Oh, by the way, we don't have a choice. We're doing it.
Right.
But what does it actually mean to each person and each group and each activity inside the company? How is it going to make us ultimately a better company to deliver on our mission and our promise and our vision to help customers, right? In whatever it is we're doing. And I do think this is an urgent priority for organizations, and not all of them will go at the same pace. We recognize that, but we're certainly going for it, and we see the opportunity, and we see more and more companies kind of realizing the kind of things that Samantini and Larry were talking about, right? And I do think it will separate the winning and losing companies faster than ever before. That's also been a trend is business have been succeeding or failing at a faster rate because of change increasing.
Yeah, you made a not so subtle nod to you really need to get on the train or you could be left behind. I couldn't help but to think companies like Blockbuster, who didn't get on the media train, didn't get on the internet train, and they were just wiped out. There were a ton of media companies. There were brick and mortar stores that didn't make it. There were just too many consumer electronic stores out there when people felt very comfortable buying them online.
Certainly in our lifetimes, there was never a moment where you should be reimagining your business. This is it, right?
That's exactly right.
This is the moment.
And I think really deep down, it's a perpetual state. If there's anything we've learned during the decade of digital transformation, remember when we used to talk about that? You used to love talking about analog transformation because,
Sorry,
but like
I'm difficult.
You know, as we went through and we realized all the things about people driving change, but like if you really think about what AI has done, is that even the business model we first adopt because of AI will probably need to change in a matter of months, years. It's not going to be that. You used to be able to start a business, you know, in the earliest days. I still love listening to your stories, Michael, about PC, you know, your founding company. And, you know, you had years, though, where you were evolving that business, where the model didn't change a lot.
Right.
You think about over the last 5 years, how much your business model has changed.
It's like leap year, you know, just leaping ahead in incredible powers. And of course, the danger for the incumbent companies is you get these born AI companies that just have a clean sheet of paper and are thinking about how they're solving a problem. And so it's never been easier to create a new company, create a new service, create a new product. And it's not just the existing companies that will utilize that.
Yeah, as Sam Altman said, the one-person billion-dollar unicorn company may come in the future. So big companies need to stay on our toes. Smaller companies need to take the opportunity. And when small becomes big, they're going to have to be on their toes for the next disruptor.
Well, one thing we do know for sure is that all of this involves an incredible amount of data, right? And an incredible amount of compute. That's just what we love to do at Dell Technologies. So
You're beaming when you say this, Mike.
This is fun stuff. I mean, you can debate about how it's going to happen and what the models are, and is it going to be this or that, but for sure, there's data and compute as the substrate to make it all happen.
Well, Michael, I want to thank you so much for joining us on Dell TV Live here at Dell Technologies World 2025. We're the 6.5 with Michael. It's become an annual tradition. We'll have to do it again next year. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Michael.
And thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. 6.5 on the road at Dell TV Live. We'll be back soon. Stay with us for this after this break.